Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
Flawless paint. Pristine interior. Not a scratch anywhere. Yet for 5 years, it hadn't moved an inch under its own power. The car belonged to Amelia Hart, founder and CEO of Hart Global Holdings. She was one of the most successful businesswomen in the country. Private jets. Luxury homes. Multi-million-dollar investments. She could buy almost anything she wanted. But there was one thing money couldn't buy. A working Ferrari. 5 years earlier, Amelia had purchased the rare vehicle at an exclusive auction. The seller claimed it was a collector's dream. A one-of-a-kind engineering masterpiece. She paid nearly $3 million. A week later, the engine died. No warning. No explanation. Just silence. At first, Amelia wasn't worried. She sent the Ferrari to a luxury dealership. They couldn't fix it. Then to a racing specialist. They failed. Then to an international engineering firm. Nothing. Over the next 5 years, she spent more than $2 million on diagnostics, parts, transportation, and consulting fees. Every expert reached the same conclusion. The car was impossible to repair. Eventually, the Ferrari became famous. Not because it was rare. Because nobody could fix it. One morning, Amelia decided she had enough. She announced a public challenge. Anyone who could repair the Ferrari would receive a reward of $500,000. The announcement spread quickly. Mechanics arrived from across the country. Engineers submitted proposals. Automotive specialists lined up for a chance. One by one, they failed. Weeks passed. Then months. The Ferrari remained silent. One afternoon, Amelia visited the showroom to check on the latest attempt. Another specialist had just given up. Frustrated, she walked through the building. As she passed a maintenance closet, she noticed someone watching the Ferrari through the glass wall. It was the building's janitor. A quiet older man named Arthur Bennett. He had worked there for nearly 8 years. Most employees barely noticed him. Arthur spent his days cleaning floors, emptying trash bins, and repairing small maintenance problems. Amelia stopped. "You seem interested in the car." Arthur smiled. "It's beautiful." Amelia sighed. Beautiful and impossible. Arthur looked at the Ferrari for several seconds. Then he quietly said something unexpected. "I don't think it's impossible." Amelia almost laughed. "What?" Arthur pointed toward the car. "I think the problem has been misunderstood." For a moment, Amelia stared at him. Then she smiled sarcastically. "The world's best mechanics failed." Arthur nodded. "I know. And you think you know something they don't?" Several nearby employees stopped working. They wanted to hear this. Arthur remained calm. "I'm not saying that." "Then what are you saying?" Arthur looked at the Ferrari again. "I'm saying everyone may have been looking in the wrong place." A few employees chuckled. One manager laughed openly. Amelia folded her arms. "You're a janitor." Arthur smiled politely. "That's true." The manager shook his head. "This should be good." The small crowd laughed. But Arthur didn't seem embarrassed. If anything, he seemed curious. As if he genuinely wanted to help. Finally, Amelia made a decision. A challenge. One she would soon regret. "Fine," she said. "You think you can do better than the experts?" Arthur remained silent. Amelia pointed toward the Ferrari. "Tomorrow morning, you get exactly one chance." The room erupted with laughter. No one believed what they were hearing. A janitor. Fixing a Ferrari. It sounded ridiculous. But Arthur simply nodded. "Tomorrow morning is fine." What nobody in that showroom knew was that Arthur Bennett had been hiding a secret for nearly 20 years. And by the next day, the impossible Ferrari would reveal far more than a mechanical problem. The next morning, employees arrived earlier than usual. Word had spread throughout the building. Everyone wanted to witness the janitor's attempt. Some came out of curiosity. Others came to laugh. A few even placed friendly bets on how quickly Arthur would give up. By 9 a.m., a small crowd had gathered around the Ferrari. Amelia stood nearby with her management team. The same specialists who had failed over the years were watching through a live video feed. No one expected a miracle. Then Arthur Bennett entered the showroom. He wasn't carrying expensive diagnostic equipment. He wasn't wearing a racing team uniform. Instead, he arrived with a simple toolbox that looked older than some of the employees. The crowd immediately began whispering. "That's it. He's going to fix a Ferrari with that. This should be entertaining." Arthur ignored the comments. He slowly walked around the vehicle. Once. Twice. 3 times. Carefully observing every detail. The silence in the room grew. Unlike previous experts, Arthur didn't rush. He didn't immediately connect computers. He didn't start removing parts. Instead, he listened. He touched certain panels. Checked wiring paths. Studied the dashboard. Almost as if he were trying to understand the car's story. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Finally, Amelia crossed her arms. "Have you found something?" Arthur nodded. "I think so." The room grew quiet. One manager smirked. "Already?" Arthur looked at him. "No. I found it 10 minutes ago." The smile disappeared from the manager's face. Arthur opened the driver's door and sat inside. Then he asked for the complete repair history. Amelia's assistant brought several thick folders. Thousands of pages. 5 years of reports. Arthur spent nearly an hour reviewing them. Then something caught his attention. A single note from 4 years earlier. Most people would have ignored it. Arthur didn't. He read it again. Then again. His expression changed. "What is it?" Amelia asked. Arthur closed the folder. "Everyone has been trying to repair the symptom." The room became silent. "What does that mean?" one engineer asked. Arthur pointed toward the engine compartment. "The real problem isn't there." Several people exchanged confused looks. A senior technician frowned. "That's impossible. We've checked every system." Arthur nodded. "Exactly. Every system except one." The technician looked annoyed. "What system?" Arthur smiled. "The one nobody thought could be responsible." For the next 2 hours, Arthur carefully inspected a section of the vehicle that no previous report had focused on. The crowd's amusement slowly turned into curiosity. Even Amelia found herself paying close attention. Finally, Arthur stood up. "I know why it won't run." The room froze. No one spoke. Amelia stepped forward. "You know." Arthur nodded. "Yes. The Ferrari's problem wasn't mechanical. It wasn't electrical. And it wasn't caused by engine damage. The truth was something no expert had considered. Something hidden deep inside the car since the day Amelia bought it. A mistake so unusual that it had fooled every specialist for 5 years. One engineer laughed nervously. "What mistake?" Arthur looked directly at Amelia. Then he said 7 words that stunned everyone in the showroom. "This Ferrari was never meant to run." The room exploded with confusion. "What? That's ridiculous. What are you talking about?" Arthur remained calm. Because he knew something the others didn't. And the next piece of evidence would either prove he was a genius, or make him the biggest fool in the room. The showroom erupted with questions. This Ferrari was never meant to run. What does that even mean? Are you serious? Even Amelia looked skeptical. For 5 years, she had listened to countless theories. Most of them sounded more believable than this one. Arthur waited for the room to settle. Then he opened one of the repair reports and placed it on the hood of the Ferrari. Every expert assumed this car left the factory as a complete production vehicle. Several engineers nodded. Of course it did. Arthur shook his head. No. He pointed toward a series of identification numbers hidden beneath a panel. Those numbers don't belong to a standard production Ferrari. Now the room became quiet. A technician stepped closer. What are you saying? Arthur took a deep breath. I'm saying this car started its life as an experimental prototype. The words landed like a thunderbolt. Amelia stared at him. A prototype? Arthur nodded. Not a regular road car. Not a customer vehicle. A development platform. Several engineers immediately began checking the numbers themselves. One of them suddenly looked shocked. He's right. The room froze. What? The engineer swallowed hard. These codes match an internal development series. Amelia couldn't believe it. How is that possible? Arthur continued. Because this vehicle was never designed to operate with standard production software. He pointed toward the onboard control system. Every garage kept replacing parts. They kept rebuilding components. They kept treating it like a normal Ferrari. But the computer controlling the car was designed for testing purposes. The room was silent. 5 years. $2 million. Hundreds of specialists. And none of them had discovered this. Amelia slowly sat down. Then why didn't anyone find it? Arthur smiled slightly. Because they were looking for expensive problems. The answer surprised everyone. What do you mean? Arthur folded his arms. Sometimes expertise becomes a disadvantage. The engineers listened carefully. When people expect a complicated solution, they stop considering simple explanations. No one argued. Because the evidence was right in front of them. Arthur then opened a small compartment beneath the dashboard. Inside was a module that had received almost no attention over the years. Most technicians assumed it was original equipment. Arthur knew better. This was modified before the auction. The room fell silent again. Modified? Arthur nodded. Someone installed the wrong control firmware years ago. The manager who had laughed at Arthur the previous day suddenly looked nervous. Can it be fixed? Arthur looked at the module. Then at the Ferrari. Then back at Amelia. Yes. The crowd gasped. 5 years. $2 million. And now a janitor was saying he could fix it. Amelia stood. How long? Arthur thought for a moment. Then answered calmly. A few hours. The room exploded with disbelief. But before anyone could say another word, a voice echoed from the back of the showroom. That's impossible. Everyone turned. A man in an expensive suit had just entered. His expression was serious. Very serious. Arthur's face changed instantly. For the first time since this began, he looked genuinely surprised. Because he recognized the man. And judging by the look on the stranger's face, the stranger recognized Arthur too. The showroom fell silent. Every eye turned toward the man in the expensive suit. He looked to be in his late 50s. Confident. Professional. And clearly familiar with Arthur. Arthur slowly stood up. For the first time since the challenge began, he seemed genuinely surprised. The stranger walked forward. Arthur Bennett. The room became even quieter. Amelia looked between them. You know each other? The man nodded. Oh, I know Arthur very well. There was something unusual in his voice. Not anger. Not amusement. Respect. A great deal of respect. The stranger extended his hand. My name is Marco Ricci. Several automotive specialists immediately recognized the name. Gasps spread across the room. Marco Ricci was one of the most respected automotive engineers in the world. He had spent decades working on high-performance vehicle development projects. Amelia couldn't believe it. What are you doing here? Marco smiled. I came because someone told me Arthur Bennett was working on this Ferrari. Now everyone was confused. Why would a world-famous engineer travel across the country because of a janitor? Marco turned toward the crowd. You people think Arthur is just a janitor. Nobody spoke. Then Marco laughed softly. 20 years ago, Arthur Bennett was one of the best prototype diagnostic specialists I ever worked with. The room froze. Amelia stared at Arthur. What? Marco continued. During several development programs, Arthur had a reputation. What reputation? One engineer asked. Marco smiled. When everyone else failed, Arthur found the answer. The employees looked stunned. The quiet janitor standing before them suddenly seemed like a completely different person. Amelia looked directly at Arthur. You never mentioned any of this. Arthur shrugged. No one asked. A few people laughed nervously. Marco shook his head. Typical Arthur. The engineer who had mocked him earlier now looked embarrassed. So you're saying he really knows what he's talking about? Marco smiled. Let's put it this way. If Arthur says the problem is software related, I'd trust him before I trusted 10 engineering teams. The room fell completely silent. 5 years of failed repairs. $2 million spent. And now one of the world's most respected engineers was publicly supporting the janitor. Amelia turned back toward Arthur. Can you actually fix it? Arthur looked at the Ferrari. Then nodded. I believe so. For the next several hours, nobody left the showroom. Arthur carefully removed the modified control module. Marco assisted him. Together, they examined files buried deep within the system. As they worked, something unexpected appeared. A hidden configuration file. One that shouldn't have existed. Marco's expression changed immediately. This doesn't make sense. Arthur looked closer. Then his eyes narrowed. The file wasn't accidental. Someone had intentionally altered the system before the auction years earlier. The room became quiet again. You're saying somebody did this on purpose? Amelia asked. Arthur nodded. Yes. The realization shocked everyone. The Ferrari hadn't become impossible to repair because of bad luck. Someone had deliberately created the problem. Marco slowly leaned back. If that's true. He stopped speaking. What? Amelia asked. Marco looked directly at her. If we're right, this wasn't a repair failure. It was fraud. The word echoed through the showroom. Fraud. Suddenly the mystery became much bigger than a broken Ferrari. 5 years earlier, someone may have knowingly sold Amelia a vehicle that was designed to fail. And if Arthur could prove it, the consequences would reach far beyond the car itself. The word fraud hung in the air. No one spoke for several seconds. Amelia looked at the Ferrari. Then at Arthur. Then at Marco. Can you prove it? She finally asked. Arthur didn't answer immediately. Instead, he carefully examined the hidden configuration file once more. Every line of code told a story. And the story wasn't good. This file wasn't created by Ferrari, Arthur said. Marco nodded. I agree. Several engineers moved closer. One of them frowned. Then who created it? Arthur pointed to a unique digital signature buried inside the file. It belongs to a third-party tuning company. The room fell silent. Marco's eyes widened. I know that company. Amelia looked at him. Who are they? Marco sighed. They used to modify exotic cars for wealthy collectors. What happened to them? They disappeared 6 years ago. That answer only created more questions. Arthur continued investigating. As he traced the software history, he discovered something unexpected. The modification had been installed just 3 months before Amelia purchased the Ferrari. Not years earlier. Not at the factory. Right before the auction. The timing couldn't be ignored. Amelia's expression hardened. You mean someone tampered with the car before it was sold to me? Arthur nodded. That's exactly what I'm saying. The showroom became tense. For 5 years, Amelia had blamed herself. She had blamed mechanics. She had blamed engineers. She had blamed bad luck. Now it appeared the real problem had been there from the beginning. And someone had hidden it. Marco leaned forward. Can you remove it? Arthur smiled slightly. Yes. The room instantly became silent. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Arthur connected the module to a diagnostic station. Then, with remarkable patience, he began restoring the original configuration. Minutes turned into hours. Nobody left. Nobody wanted to miss what happened next. Finally, as evening approached, Arthur closed his toolbox. It's ready. Amelia felt her heart race. 5 years. 5 years of frustration. 5 years of disappointment. Everything now depended on one moment. Arthur stepped toward the driver's seat. The crowd gathered around the Ferrari. Employees. Engineers. Executives. Even Marco looked nervous. Arthur inserted the key. The showroom became completely silent. Then he turned it. For a brief second, nothing happened. A few people held their breath. Then, the Ferrari came alive. The engine roared through the showroom. A deep, powerful sound echoed across the building. The crowd erupted. People cheered. Several employees began clapping. Others simply stared in disbelief. Amelia couldn't move. Tears formed in her eyes. For 5 years, she had dreamed of hearing that sound again. And now it was finally real. Arthur gently pressed the accelerator. The engine responded perfectly. No warning lights. No failures. No problems. The impossible Ferrari was running. The celebration continued for several minutes. But Arthur wasn't smiling. Marco noticed immediately. What's wrong? Arthur looked toward the diagnostic screen. Something else had appeared. A hidden record. One that had remained buried inside the system for years. Arthur opened the file. His expression changed instantly. What is it? Amelia asked. Arthur slowly looked up. The person who altered the Ferrari left their name. The room froze. Amelia stepped forward. Who was it? Arthur stared at the screen. Then he spoke. And the answer shocked everyone in the showroom. The showroom was silent. Everyone stared at Arthur. The Ferrari's engine continued to purr smoothly in the background. After 5 years of silence, it was finally alive. But nobody was paying attention to the car anymore. They wanted to know the name. The person responsible. The person who had caused 5 years of frustration and more than $2 million in wasted repairs. Amelia stepped closer. Who was it? Arthur looked at the screen one final time. Then he turned toward the crowd. The person who modified the Ferrari wasn't an engineer. The room looked confused. It wasn't a mechanic. People exchanged glances. Then who was it? Marco asked. Arthur took a deep breath. It was the seller. The room erupted. What? That's impossible. The auction seller? Arthur nodded. The modification was installed just weeks before the auction. He pointed toward the digital records. The signature, the timestamps, and the ownership history all match. Marco studied the evidence. A few moments later, he slowly nodded. He's right. Amelia felt a wave of disbelief. The seller had known. They had knowingly sold a vehicle with a hidden software defect. Not only that. The hidden file contained messages showing that the seller expected future buyers to spend enormous amounts of money trying to diagnose the problem. The modification was designed to be nearly impossible to detect. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate deception. For a moment, Amelia said nothing. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny. Because after 5 years of mystery, she finally had an answer. Over the following weeks, her legal team launched an investigation. The evidence was overwhelming. Several former employees of the auction company cooperated with authorities. Documents surfaced. Emails were recovered. The truth became impossible to deny. The company eventually agreed to a massive settlement rather than face a lengthy public trial. Amelia recovered a significant portion of her losses. But surprisingly, money was no longer the thing she cared about most. One afternoon, she visited Arthur in the building's maintenance workshop. He was repairing a broken cleaning machine. Just like any ordinary day. Amelia shook her head. I still can't believe this. Arthur smiled. Believe what? That the world's experts failed. And a janitor solved it. Arthur laughed softly. People keep saying that. Because it's true. Arthur placed a wrench on the table. No. The room became quiet. It's not. Amelia looked confused. What do you mean? Arthur smiled. They didn't fail because they lacked intelligence. They failed because they stopped asking questions. Amelia listened carefully. Arthur continued. The moment someone believes they already know the answer, they stop looking for the truth. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Amelia asked the question everyone had wondered about. If you were so talented, why become a janitor? Arthur looked out the window. For several seconds, he remained silent. Then he answered. 20 years ago, I worked non-stop. Big projects. Long hours. Constant pressure. I missed birthdays. Missed family events. Missed life. His voice remained calm. Eventually, I realized success isn't about titles. It's about peace. Amelia nodded slowly. She understood. For years she had chased bigger companies. Bigger deals. Bigger achievements. Yet the happiest person she had met in years was a man pushing a cleaning cart. A man who needed no recognition. No applause. No spotlight. A few months later, Amelia announced something unexpected. She created the Bennett Scholarship Program. A fund designed to help talented young mechanics and technicians who couldn't afford expensive education. The program's slogan was simple. Talent can be found anywhere. Arthur hated the attention. But he couldn't argue with the mission. Over time, hundreds of students benefited from the program. Many went on to become successful engineers, business owners, inventors, and mentors. As for the Ferrari, it finally returned to the road where it belonged. Not as a symbol of wealth, but as a reminder. A reminder that true expertise doesn't always wear a suit. It doesn't always sit in a boardroom. And it certainly doesn't depend on a job title. Sometimes the smartest person in the room is the one nobody notices. And sometimes, The person everyone calls just a janitor is the one who sees what everyone else missed.